Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to another episode of B is for Build. We're here working on the 1967 Mustang Fastback body swap. It's actually a 2019 Mustang GT under there. This is our Shelby tribute car that we're building to bring to SEMA. The largest problem that we have right now is that SEMA starts in, well, I have to leave for SEMA in 14 days. It starts in 16 days. Right now we're like smiling jokingly a little bit behind schedule, a lot of hard work to catch up. We're not quite so far behind schedule that it's absolutely psychotic. So we're putting a rush on it, we're getting it going. If you guys missed out on some of the previous episodes, this thing started as a 2019 Mustang GT. We cut the entire body off of that 2019 Mustang GT, then started placing reproduction 67 fastback paneling onto what was left of the chassis. We got the side panels on, we get the roof panels on, test fit the back a little bit. In the last episode, we did things like welding out a cage, fitting the cowl, and getting the doors on. So in today's episode, we've got things like wheels, tires, suspension. We're gonna get the ride height set correctly, side skirts. We've got to get all the rest of the body pretty much on here and done, meaning the whole back end needs to be on, tail lights are going to be on, front fenders are going to be on, front bumper is going to be on. A lot of stuff is going to come in today's episode, and we better be able to roll it around by the time we're done. So let's get started. Before we jump into that, I want to take a quick second out to eat lunch and to thank today's sponsor. You guys know we're all about DIY, but food is something I like to leave to the experts. And that's why today's episode is sponsored by Cook Unity. Cook Unity is the very first chef-to-you meal delivery service. It's made up of over 70 different chefs who believe that good food should be for everybody, especially for those of us that are busy getting our hands dirty doing something else. The way it works is each week, award-winning chefs create hundreds of different globally inspired meals, from vegetarian to paleo and everything else in between. And the meals are delivered to you fresh, never frozen, and the menu rotates every week, so there's always something new to try. And it's really cool. They keep the subscription service really flexible, so you can pause or you can skip a week or you can cancel anytime you need to. And like I said, they cook a huge variety of different types of meals. There's over 7 different dietary preference filters, including things like vegan and paleo and gluten-free options. Today I'm cooking lunch for myself and Chelsea and Oscar. And we've got, for myself, a meal by Esther Choi out of Brooklyn, New York. This is really, really good. This is Korean barbecue spicy pork with caramelized kimchi. And I've eaten a lot of Korean barbecue. I've even been to Korea to eat Korean barbecue. And I'll tell you, this is really, really good. And for Chelsea, we have Hamburg steak with mushroom gravy. And for Oscar, we've got turkey bolognese lasagna. And I've been able to try all of these meals and they are absolutely fantastic. So go to cookunity.com/B-is-for-build50 or click the link at the very top of my description. It's also on the screen right here. When you're there, use my code B-is-for-build50. And that'll get you 50% off of your first order of Cook Unity meals, so you can try them out yourself. Huge thanks to Cook Unity. Let's get to lunch and then get back to the shop. So we've got Oscar on fender duty. He's working on these fenders, getting them mounts get built right in there, up there, and down there. So the fender's mounted in about 4 or 5 spots. So he's gonna be working on that. I am back here. Now I saw a lot of your guys' comments didn't like the look of the round rear bumper. And well, luckily for you guys, it doesn't fit. And then rather than cutting it, and then I'm also gonna have to build these weird standoffs. This keeps getting further and further away from where I need to mount the classic bumper. So rather than building these big ass standoffs and stuff like that, I went ahead and ordered some steel. Now this steel is not made to be a bumper, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put some relief cuts in it, which I've seen on other OEM vehicles and OEM bumpers. I think it was like the Lotus. So you put like I'm gonna put some little. Now this is not advice for anybody to do at home, but I'm just telling you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put a few little notches in some of the corners of the tube in a few different spots that'll allow it to crumple a little bit, so I don't have a massive hunk of steel rear bumper that's not going to crumple at all if we do get into a medium speed wreck. I think overall this would be safer, but overall that's going to be a bit better. That's what I'm sticking with. So I'm going to take this thing out. I'm going to modify that. I'm going to get it ready to be a rear bumper, rear crash impact bar. I'm going to get that thing in here and then start buttoning up the back end out here. Another thing I should mention, it might look a little bit different in here. We got upgraded lighting, guys. I spent some time that we did not have and got a crap ton of light. So I think you could tell that's how dark that is. That's old shop light. This is new shop light. Eventually, it'll be throughout the shop. We also went ahead and got a new camera because I was having a lot of problems with the camera before. So a lot of things are changing in the production world. And I'm saying that because If anything sucks, just bear with us and we'll work on fixes. And we apologize ahead of time. We've spent a lot of years getting good at this stuff and not so much like this stuff. And I don't regret that. I never wanted to be a YouTuber. I like being a car builder. So we'll just do the best we can, you know? All right, I'm gonna get down to building cars. Let's do it. We're a little bit past halfway through our first day of this episode. I want to give you guys a status update on where we've got so far. Remember what I said about using the other rear bumper, but then I said all the good safety stuff about the OEM rear bumper? Yeah, so I went back to the OEM rear bumper, decided that was the better way to do it. So that is hard to see, but it's in there. It's welded in there, and then this all gets boxed out and filled out and everything, so it's all nice. Got the rear valance starting to be test fit on there. That's going to be welded in. And another big thing that was done is the evap system is relocated and living in its permanent home down there. So next steps for the back end are the valance, getting the valance kind of finished out. It's got to be welded to the rear tail panel and then welded in the bottom. And then we got to start looking at how to mount the OEM rear bumper that will go in here and then bolt to the crash impact bumper. Oscar's got the first fender mounted, so I want to show you guys how we do this. All the body swaps we've ever done, the best way that we found first off is building a nice rail that runs across here that has holes for each one of your fender bolts that run all the way back down through there. Then we attach it down here, right here, attaching it back through to the body. And then Oscar welded in a plate that runs right through there that has some bolts that bolt it to the body as well. So he's just gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other fender. Let me grab a side skirt here and walk you backwards. In the 3D printer side of the world, we've almost started test printing stuff. I'll show you when we do that. And then back here in the corner, Kyle's got a booth going. Harbor Freight sent us a ton of goodies. We got a goodie shipment from Harbor Freight. One of them is this awesome 12 by 20 carport that I requested. You can see why we don't work back here. It is so freaking dark. We're working on getting all the lights and everything set up back here so it looks all pretty. But for now, we need to work. So 12 by 20 awesome carport thing here that is super heavy duty, and I would love to use one of these to keep my car in, but for right now we need to use it as a sanding booth. So sanding, fiberglass work. Also, they sent us these stands right here. We got like 4 of these stands that you'll see us using around the shop, and they're going to be really good for this next process, which is working with some fiberglass stuff. And that's why we got the tent, so we're sanding and we're not getting fiberglass fumes everywhere in the shop and everything like that. So this doesn't look much like a side skirt. If I flip it this way, it looks reminiscent of a side skirt that you might have seen in a movie once. And I did say we are not building that car, and that is not what this is about. But to get to my vision and to do what we wanted to do, it was cheaper and easier to buy this part off of eBay as a starting point and modify it than it was to try and come up with, like, make this whole thing from scratch. Especially since we didn't know if we're gonna have a 3D printer set up in time or not, which we still don't know. So what we're building is a Shelby GT500 inspired tribute car. Now, when you look at the movie car and you look at a Shelby GT500, I'll put them both on the screen right here, they're pretty similar. When you look at the modern GT500s that are being made right now, it gets even more similar. And what I learned after doing a lot of research was that the movie car was made by taking a lot of different pieces and parts of things that Shelby did and then just slapping them all together in one package and making some slight modifications. Now, when it comes to this side skirt, that's where it's kind of interesting. I haven't ever seen a Shelby car with a side skirt. I have seen a lot of Shelby cars with an exhaust thing, and I think that's where this was inspired by, was a big exhaust tube running down the side of the car and then having it kick out side exit. So if you kind of blurred your eyes and imagine that could be a big tube with a side exit kick out, I think that might be where this piece of fiberglass got inspired. Not really sure. So yeah, we're not gonna run an exhaust tube all the way down the side because we absolutely can't. The car just can't do it. And I do like the bulge look, but we're not gonna do the side exit exhaust. So we're gonna modify this to just be a bulge look with a little bit of a slight tweak of our own styling to it. So we're gonna make it kind of bulge and twist up a little bit more than it used to. So using this as our starting piece, we're gonna come in here and we are gonna start cutting all of this exhaust port stuff off. So this is gonna get cut off through here. It's gonna get cut off through here. And then we're gonna use our old tried and true tape method to start taping up and building scaffolding for new fiberglass to come in here. So the idea is we want this, you see how it kind of starts that way and it torques up a little bit? That's what we wanna do. So we're gonna go ahead and take all this stuff out. It'll just be a little bit hanging onto it right through here and back here. And then we'll start taping it up, scaffolding it, and then we'll start refiberglassing over it. And in the end, it'll just have it'll have a little bit more torque to it and it'll have no exhausty stuff in here. Good morning, everybody. It's the next day. We had a bit of a stressful night, but for right now, just right now in the episode, I'm not going to worry about it. We're going to talk about it a little bit later. We're going to focus on the here and now and the physically done stuff, not the problems for future Chris. In the back of the car here, progress is moving along, but to be honest, it's moving along a little bit more slowly than I would like. So I got to really put the hammer down and get this stuff going faster. We got the rear fill panel welded in, the rear valance welded in, rear bumper I already talked about, that's all welded in. So I'm working on the trunk pop. These 2019 Mustangs have an electric trunk pop. There's a solenoid that's done like this. This comes right off the wiring harness, so it needs to live down here somewhere. And then the other half of it goes up there, close down, lock in, hit a button on your key fob or inside the car, and that will pop. We also have to find room to hide the camera right back here, our backup camera. So it's just kind of like a little bit of trickiness to make sure you fit both of those things in there, but I'm gonna go ahead and work on that, and then I'm gonna go ahead and give this bumper the chop. I don't know why, but all of these rear bumpers always come too wide, so we cut them right down the middle, skinny it up a little bit, and I'll get that bumper fitting on there so I can start looking at fully attaching that. Oscar's got the fenders mounted to the car now, both sides of the fenders, and they are bolted in, permanently mounted, looking great. So now it's time to move on to the hood. That's our hood, lives on here. Two pops in the back, like hood pops, and then two hood pins in the front. That's 4 mounting posts, and then they'll have bumpers kind of around as well to keep it in the right spot. That's the game plan for the hood. Back here in dark fiberglass world. So the protruding parts of the side skirts have been cut off. Now the next process is to run tape. We're gonna be running tape from like here to over here and here to over here. And I did a little bit of test work and kind of development on this, and we need to fill in this negative space with just something, anything, really doesn't matter, styrofoam, foam. We're gonna use this with some packing material from my new Harbor Freight table I gotta show you guys. So we're gonna stuff a bunch of that stuff in there and put tape over it, and that'll keep it nice and taut, because what we wanna do is basically keep this flowing to the back side of it. Once we have the tape over it, then we can lay fiberglass over the tape and fiberglass it all together. I really like my new table, but it doesn't exactly fit the aesthetic of a car shop. We just got this set up, and the wheels just came in the mail. So this is my new mobile workbench. So Oscar's got his mobile tool set, and we thought about putting a workbench top on it. We may still do that, but this is my mobile workbench, my little spot to be working. So it's wood, which is a little weird to be in a car shop, but I like it. Thanks, Harbor Freight. Okay, time to get to work. We're changing up the game plan for how we mount the hood onto here. Before, we have done little standoffs in different places and stuff like that, and bumper mixed with a standoff and some of these guys to keep it. What are these things called? Push tabs, push lock, pop it and lock it buttons. Anyways, we had done that. This time we're building something a little bit different, but I wanted to explain it to you guys, and that way also that would explain why we don't have that pretty engine cover. So first mod we did, pull the engine cover off. The fill neck, the oil fill neck, if you take the end off of it, it fits really nicely where the neck came from, the nozzle. Yeah, I'm not doing great with words, thanks Oscar. So this guy was in there, and then the cap was on there, and we just pulled it out, put the cap in there, and it fits really nicely. So that's cool. And that got rid of a lot of the high level stuff. We have an aftermarket air intake coming from Holley that we're gonna get on here, and that's gonna help as well. But then once we got the cover off, we decided a really cool way to do this. So in the hood, there are supports that run horizontally through the back of the hood. And we wanna rest those supports on a nice little beam or a bar or something like that. And what we can do is double up and make a strut brace as well. So that's what we're working on fabricating here. It's a strut brace that also is going to hold the back of the hood, and then it's going to locate it with the pins as well. So it won't move side to side, but the weight of it, and this is an aluminum hood, so it's actually really nice and light. The weight of it will all be supported by that in the back. Now to do that though, we are going to have to get into a little bit of the internals. It looks like there's quite a lot of room here. These fuel lines have some covers on them. And we need to be careful to make sure that we don't bust through these breathers. These are definitely, wait, these don't look like breathers. These look like they're going into the firewall. Are they? Coolant lines. They might be coolant lines. Yeah, so I misspoke there. Those are coolant lines. And we got to make sure that they don't interfere with the fuel lines at all. So I'd like to keep this padding if we could, but maybe we can run side by side or something like that. And we're just going to take a little bit of the bracketry around. We're going to slim it down a little bit to gain a little bit more space, and then do a lot of test fitting, and then Oscar will fully fabricate this strut support bar out to be all nice and pretty. All right, rear trunk pop is installed. So I've got the hinge up here. I had to do it backwards from factory. I think this was living in there before, but so it has to be backwards because of wiring harness stuff. But anyways, this lowers down, clicks into there. I have some temporary stuff right here. Don't look at that. We're gonna clean that up and make it look better. But it's in there and it's working, and that's gonna allow me, I know I said I was gonna move on to that bumper. I'm not, I lied. I'm gonna move on to the corner pieces. These are really important drain pieces. As rain comes down into your car, it's gonna get here. You gotta make sure this drains it out of the car, not into the car. So I'm gonna be really careful. I gotta trim these up, make them fit, weld them in, get both the corners going. While I'm doing that, Kyle is starting to template out the connection from the back of the rear bumper, the back of the 2019 Mustang into the 67 paneling. So it'll be sheet metal connecting each of the two pieces that we will tack weld all the way throughout, and then seam seal, and then noise sound deaden it all up. That's kind of the finishing touch. Oscar is overjoyed with his welding table from Harbor Freight. This was a bonus, so he didn't even ask for this. They sent it out to us. Thanks Harbor Freight for yet another cool thing. So you can see Oscar notched the strut support bar. He's got his templated pieces out right here, and he's gonna go ahead and build the 45 so it's all out of 1 inch and get that cleaned up. And in the fiberglass labs, Kyle's got 3 layers of fiberglass around the old exhaust port, and we're starting to take shape there on both of these, and they're looking pretty good. So the idea is that now once this, it's still tacky, once it dries up, we'll be able to start sanding this horizontally a lot, filling in spots, taking out high spots, etc., working it down. So I told you I would explain the very, very big problem that has been, I don't get stressed out very easily. It's part of the reason I love doing this stuff. I like putting in a lot of hours. I like making stuff happen fast, and I do pretty good with stress. But today's been really stressful, and let me explain why. 3D printer, supposed to be our savior. Zane did an amazing job getting this thing to work. We did a test print. Here's some footage. And it prints, it does stuff. So when you have a printer, you have a model, you use some slicing software, it tells you how long the printer is going to take, its current travel rate and everything to print the thing that you need. So I take this bumper model and I chuck it in the 3D printer, which is, you know, big enough to fit the whole bumper, which is amazing. And the slicing software promptly gives me the bad news. Print time was going to be 9 days, and it was going to use like 15 kilos of filament, which is like 15 rolls, which is $300 of plastic, but it's also like 35 pounds of plastic. And so that's total fail. We don't have 9 days. So the 5 days, 6, 7, 10 days that we spent setting up this printer, not very much worth it. Also, just moving forward into the future, printing really large things, not really that much worth it. Like, why am I gonna spend 9 days to print a bumper when you can print it in chunks? I didn't go all in on a SEMA build thinking that the giant 7-foot wide 3D printer was gonna save all our problems. So I did have a backup plan. I had some parts ordered from Mexico. So I gave them a call today and I said, you know, how's the shipment? They were supposed to be shipped in the last 2 or 3 days and I hadn't got a tracking number yet. So I was a little concerned. I was like, hey Mexico, how's it going? You know, got a tracking number on our parts. And they said, no parts. They are hung up at the border customs and they'll be shipped freight next Wednesday, which means they'd probably make it, you know, the Wednesday after that, which we gotta be on the road to SEMA the Wednesday after that. We have 13 days starting right now. So yeah, 14 days of waiting for our front bumper doesn't work. So main plan takes 9 days, that doesn't work. Backup plan takes 14 days. That doesn't work, and that's why I've been stressing. I don't know if I've been stressed over money too much, but this thing costs a small fortune. I'm gonna pull up the email real quick. I'm gonna figure out how much I spent on this thing. It was worse than I remembered. This cost $20,000. This 3D printer that prints a front bumper in 9 days costs $20,000. Now, you can take a model, right, and you can cut it up into chunks. The way you cut it up into chunks, you can change geometry, you can use less supports. Let me show you our test print. It's pretty cool. It's a mini front bumper. And as they said on Zoolander, it has to be at least 3 times bigger than this. When you do a 3D print, it just prints each layer and goes up like this. The printer, if it has to do something like this where it kind of cuts up, it builds supports because you can't print in the middle of the air. You see how there's light underneath there? You can't just print in the middle of the air or else the filament will get all stringy and crappy. Like you can kind of see it's done right down there a little bit. So you do supports. So you can see here's some supports that I've left over. This is kind of how the supports need to be, how far apart they can be and stuff like that. And that's what supports look like basically on a 3D model. And that's because by the time, so it does fine with this part and goes all the way up to here, and then it starts kind of cutting in a lot, and it's basically printing horizontally into the air, and it's saying, hey, I need something to rest this hot filament on, and that's what the supports are there for, to support that hot filament laying down, and then it'll trap it and bring it back. So this is our front bumper 3D model, and when we look at it in the scale of giant, the problem comes in where when we're looking at the supports, they have to be, it's about every 1/4 of an inch there has to be a support. So imagine this entire thing filled up with the supports every 1/4 of an inch to catch our full-size bumper's overhang where it cuts back. And that's why it takes 9 days, is because it's basically filling this whole print bed with plastic to support the cutback. So one way you can get around it is you go into your software and you slice this piece to like this piece to this piece, and you just print that like up and down so there's no supports needed because there's no overhangs. You cut everything up and print it in different chunks so there's no overhangs. Now, if I'm cutting this all up, why wouldn't I just say print it on my good old trusty Creality printer that costs 1/20th of the price? Nope, 1/40th of the price. So if you print less supports, less print time, doesn't take 9 days, but very much worth mentioning, that has the same exact nozzle and prints at the same exact speed as this thing. So if you cut it up into chunks, and if I had like say 6 of these Creality printers printing in chunks, it prints everything 6 times faster. So I'm sitting here today in big trouble on the SEMA build. I've got one lifeline that I'll tell you about in a second, and I feel like I might have wasted, or kind of wasted, $20,000, which is, we have a high threshold for making mistakes with money here at BS for Build, but that's not good. So with that being said, if anybody wants to buy this 3D printer, it is pretty much for sale right now. There, I'm sure, are industrial uses, and the place that it comes from is at war right now, so they're probably not in production. And I have one that's already assembled, so you know my email. Anyways, here's how we get ourselves out of this problem. I've emailed a lifeline. There's another company out there that produces parts that are very similar to what I wanted to produce. If we can get one in time, I could modify it to make it exactly like the one I wanted to produce. While that's going on, I'm gonna run this printer and this printer at full frickin' tilt, printing a ton of chunks with the hopes that I can print enough chunks in enough time that we can glue them all together and we can build our front bumper, and now we're gonna also build an upper headlight surround. Totally custom, B's for Build, Shelby inspired versions. So I better get this thing started. All right, on the back end here, we got the little corner pieces in. Those are a quick thing. And Kyle's working on getting all the fill pieces in. He's getting quite a few of them done, so it's gonna be really cool to start welding this off and blocking it off from the world. My goal is tonight to finish this whole back end. So there's a lot of stuff. Taillights are a huge one. Let me show you what we got going on. So over here are the 2019 taillights that we're gonna be using for the internals. There are some LED light strips in here, or at least I hope so. And the previous owner did some slight modifications, which I'm hoping aren't going to be a problem. But opening these up, taking out the elements to put into these. And these are Shelby GT 500 style taillights. Now, Shelby started putting these in his cars, and these actually came from a Mercury Cougar. So I guess, I don't really know my history that well. Ford must have owned Mercury, I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that part, but I know that that's where these taillights came from. You can still order this part as a reproduction Ford part off of the Mercury. Some slight changes and stuff, but this is a Shelby touch, a Shelby GT 500 touch, but they are more of a Ford factory part. So it's like 4 parts. You got the inner that goes inside the car, you've got the lens, you've got the bezel. This is a nice machined aluminum piece right here, and then you've got a gasket that I've conveniently stored on the ground. So I'll pull the LED strip out of here. I'll place it in here like this. I'll find a way to bolt it in there. And then it's pretty cool because all the stuff like the sequential, the daytime running lights, all of the settings that the 2019 Mustang had, they just cross right over into your nice classic taillight. So I'm gonna go ahead and try and get these things installed so we can get them test fit into the car. Morning guys, it's the next day and Oscar has joined me in catastrophe land. Let me tell you all about it. Driver's side taillight is almost done. Well, I just got started, but passenger side is done. Kyle's got a layer of fiberglass reinforced body filler on our side skirts over there. 3D printing is working well over there. Oscar's got the rear mounts and the strut bar finished for the hood. This thing is super, super cool. And that's going across. He's working on the front ones. And then catastrophe struck Oscar, and his second story bathroom is leaking into his first story, whatever. I don't know what's underneath there. So that's a problem. So if we see him before the end of this episode, we'll give you guys a status update. If not, status is bad. Bad for all of this. Bad for him, bad for the house, bad for the project. Doesn't need water in its house anyways. Should just go shut off the main at the street. Yeah, they can buy bottled water. Like, it's what they do in Michigan. All right, time to throw some mods onto this car. First one comes from BC Racing. BC Racing makes the best coilovers in the business. These absolutely transform your ride. I've got these on my GTR. I've got these on my R69 GTR. I've got them on my Supra. They make your car ride like it's on rails. This is a BR series set of coilovers. And for this S550 Mustang platform, you got a coilover shock in the front. It's pretty self-explanatory as to where it goes. And then in the back, you have a shock right here, and then you have the kind of independent spring setup with the adjustment down here. To make the car visually look right, you got to lower the S550 Mustang, the 2019, quite a bit. So I called up BC because, like I said, they're the best in the business. I mean, like, all my favorite Formula Drift drivers drive on BC. They're just an awesome company. So huge thanks to BC Racing for supporting us on this build. I'll put a link in the description. If you guys are looking for coilovers, definitely go check them out. So Kyle's gonna throw a camera on and get these things installed. We'll show you through the process, and I will get these taillights finished. Oscar's back. How bad was it?
It wasn't terrible. Luckily, it was a part you can buy and then replace. Yeah.
His house is not floating.
No, it's just flooded. It's just wet.
It's okay though. Any real damage?
No real. Well, I mean, everything got wet, so it's like, you never know.
We got some fans here we can send you home with.
Yeah.
Lots of fans. All right, we're all back to it now. It's late, but we just hit a huge milestone. We just got every big bolt-on part to the car bolted on. Every big component that we have is on. Let me show you around. We've got the hood in its place, and so you got these push pops in the back, and then we got the classic hood pins in the front, the Shelby GT500 style giant hood pins. Now those aren't installed yet because we want to wait till after paint, so we got a nice coat of paint underneath them. We're trying not to put a lot of parts on that we're going to have to take right back off, even though once you see the back end, I clearly did a lot of that. We got the BC Racing coilovers on. We just adjusted them a little bit, so we're going to show you how that goes. Talk with Kyle about the installation. He said nothing really jumped out at him. Like there was nothing was crazy about the installation. It was just these bolts on the stock Mustang. These guys right here, really hard to get off. Flip the nut around so you have a nice hammering face and hammer the hell out of them, and they'll come right off. The other thing is to get the rear springs in, dropping the rear subframe is a good idea. So put the jack under there and drop the rear subframe a little bit, and that'll help you get the rear springs in there if you're doing a S550. Again, a mod that I highly, highly recommend. Coming around here to the back, I went ahead and put the taillights in. Although those are one of the things we have to take out before paint. Same with the little center cap. And I cut the bumper, I shortened it up. I might have shortened it up a little bit too much, but that's not that hard to unweld in the middle and space out a little bit more. The really annoying thing about this is wherever you put the bumper, it leaves this mondo gap between the rear duckbill corner thing, and that just leaves a huge gap. So we have to like custom sheet metal work that in. That's what we did on our last Mustang build, and we got to build that up to meet there, and it's a lot of work. So the bumper is a work in progress, but it's now there, and I also have to build mounts on the inside for it as well. So it looks a little goofy without a front end. Shelby GT500 style headlight surround comes out, meets up with the hood, that goes through here, and then the front bumper is right here. Those are both things that we've got in the 3D printer queue. I've been printing away with my extremely overpriced, overglorified 3D printer. I've got a couple pieces. Out of 8 pieces, 1, 2, 3 are done. 4 is on the way, and I broke the smaller, large Creality printer. I decided to weld a new nozzle in there that was not the right thread pitch, and I melted some stuff. But it's a replaceable part. I got one hopefully coming tomorrow, and then I'll get that thing cooking and we'll start printing twice as fast. So I would like to see how this vehicle sits on the ground. To do that, we need wheels and tires. And I want to show you guys our wheels and tires. Let's get them on. All right, we got some slight suspension modifications to continue making, some more tweaks to lower down the back, but damn, this thing is looking so good. I'm so happy about this. Let me tell you a little bit about our wheel and tire combo. This is a Konig Hypergram. I think it's a metallic gray with the machine lip, and we're running in a 17x8, and you have to run a pretty high positive offset because the 2019 Mustang is so much wider than the 97 Mustang. You can't run a really low offset. But these wheels, I had like mentally picked out the last time we did one of these builds. I wanted to run these wheels. The classic Shelby GT500 style wheels, they would never fit. We bought them and they trust me, they didn't fit. But so we wanted something that was like modern, but still retro. And that's why the Hypergram is so good, because with the multi-spoke design and everything, it's still got kind of a retro multi-spoke look, but it also looks really, really good on tuner cars as well. You guys know we've been working with Konig since the beginning of the channel. I love them as a company. They make great high performance wheels at a really, really good price. People run them in time attack and circuit racing and Formula D and all sorts of good things. And they're an amazing wheel. So I'll put a link in the description. Huge thanks to Konig for supporting us on yet another build. And then these are wrapped in Nitto NT 555 G2s. And that's the tire that they use in Formula Drift, but they use it in a little bit wider layout. These are a relatively skinny tire from what we're used to doing. It's a 225 by 45, but it's a great, great tire. It's got plenty of traction, and it comes in at a really, really good price point. Both of these brands are, you know, we're all about like economical, affordable, great quality stuff, and both of these brands definitely hit that box. So I'll put a link to Nitto's website as well, and we just thank them for all of the support. There's so many builds in here with both Konig wheels and Nitto tires, and they've supported us with so much stuff. We just appreciate the hell out of them. And it's not just us too. Both of these companies support so many creators. Your favorite creators on any platform, a lot of them are supported by one of these two companies. So huge thanks to them, and it looks amazing. I'm so excited. Once we set the ride height, we finish the widening and the body and stuff like that, this package is gonna tuck in real nice. In the next episode, we're gonna focus on making this car more of a car again. So we're gonna get things like seats back in there, get the cage welded out, verify that we can get all the electronics working back again, and we're gonna take it for a test drive. Super excited to go drive this thing for the first time. Oh, we gotta remember to get registration. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that episode, and more episodes coming on this build and the next build. And we appreciate you guys so much for watching. See you guys on the next one. Peace!